How's it going, everybody? I've got some more magic for you today with an Esper Artifacts build. I've been enjoying Esper Artifacts ever since Noctis came out in the Final Fantasy set, and we got a really nice inclusion in this new Avatar: The Last Airbender set that I think really makes this deck work better than it has since Noctis came out. They're well, let's start off. They released the Phoenix Fleet Airship card, which is a 4-drop artifact in black that really synergizes extremely well with this deck. Whenever one of the copies comes onto the battlefield, it triggers Simulacrum Synthesizer as well as anytime you play Phoenix Fleet Airship. And we have a significant amount of sacrifice options available between Cryogen Relic and Repurposing Bay. So as long as you're using these two cards, you're going to have pretty much constant activation options for Phoenix Fleet Airship's abilities to create more and more tokens. Not to mention, with the ability to crew the Phoenix Fleet Airship, you have something that you can attack with almost as a pseudo-haste ability. Anytime you generate tokens with the Simulacrum Synthesizer, those bodies don't necessarily inherently get the ability to attack on their own, but they can crew your ships to attack with until you have the 8 airships that you need. And then we also have the ability to play, as I said before, Noctis, Prince of Lucis, since we are trying to sacrifice our artifacts to trigger the Phoenix Fleet Airship. Then we also have Noctis to get those artifacts back from our graveyard with a finality counter on them to regain usability from them if we need to. It's also really good in this deck because obviously people are going to want to try and counter or destroy your Simulacrum Synthesizer since it's one of the main components of the deck and most people are familiar with it. Having Noctis does give you the ability to get some of those things back from the graveyard, which is really nice. I am running 1 copy of the Enigma Jewel because it's really nice when you do have it with Repurposing Bay. It basically is usable to tap with Repurposing Bay for free. Because it can generate mana to do the abilities of your artifacts. We've got a full set of spring-loaded saw blades, as well as a full play set of clay-fired bricks. Both of these are really good. For one, clay-fired bricks can help you go fetch land, which helps you mana fix just a tiny bit, and it gains you life, which is really, really nice. And in a pinch, this can be a win condition as well by generating creatures for you, as well as buffing creatures for you. If, for example, people really get rid of your Simulacrum Synthesizer and you don't get to make the construct tokens, you can still really easily win with this and Phoenix Fleet Airship. What I was saying before, the Phoenix Fleet Airship is almost like a secondary win condition, or, well, it's not even almost secondary. It is a secondary option for if you lose all of your Simulacrum Synthesizer, which is very possible. You can still absolutely win with the airship, which is why I think this is more viable than the regular Azorius or even Jeskai artifact build. Because in those, if you lose your Simulacrum Synthesizer, you're pretty much stalled out. There's no way to win the game for you at that point. But in this build, if you have Phoenix Fleet Airship and you still lose your Simulacrum Synthesizer at some point, you can still be a huge threat just by keeping the airships out in the battlefield. I did try a handful of different other cards in this build that I'll go over in a second because the sideboard isn't an actual sideboard in this video. But we also do have inclusions like, let's see here, Repurposing Bay, absolutely something necessary in this one because we need those sacrifice effects. We do have Pinnacle Starcage, which also can be sacrificed to give you value if you have to play it early, get some of your things back, or even just sacrifice it to get those tokens. That sacrifice is also another one that can trigger Phoenix Fleet Airship, and a good benefit to this deck is the Phoenix Fleet Airship itself can't be taken by the Pinnacle Starcage, so it has some, it doesn't negatively impact it in that way, but you could lose a lot of your 2-drops or even your Enigma Jewel. That's why I'm running it as a 1-of. If we ran it as more, then you're more likely to hit it with your Pinnacle Starcages, which is kind of frustrating. We've got Perilous Snare, a really big and important removal piece in this. You could go for the Azorius one as well, but the max speed start your engines effects of this are really nice, so it gives you added benefit on top of being able to take your opponent's creature, so that's why that one was ideal. I did decide to go with 3 United Battlefronts. There are a lot of cards in this version of the deck that it can't hit, so it is possible to miss with this, though it's pretty unlikely, because you do get to look at the top 7 cards, but it won't hit Phoenix Fleet Airship, Oil Deep Gear Hulk, Noctis, or the Riptide Gear Hulk. So you do have a lot of opportunities here to miss. It also won't hit itself or any land. So that's something worth keeping in mind. I originally tried swapping out the United Battlefront for Beseech the Mirror, because you could absolutely use this in this deck and use it to go and fetch with the bargain your Phoenix Fleet Airship and get that bargain as a sacrifice trigger to make Phoenix Fleet Airship copy itself on the turn that you do that. However, the 3 black specific that's necessary for Beseech the Mirror is not consistent in this deck. We do have a lot of black land, but it's still really hard to be able to consistently get that Beseech the Mirror on, say, for example, turn 4. So I opted against it and just went for the United Battlefront for more consistent triggers on your 3-drops and 2-drops. I think the weakest card in here, as far as one that I would get rid of potentially, is the Riptide Gear Hulk. You could easily replace that for another Oil Deep Gear Hulk, or even a second Enigma Jewel if you preferred that. Personally, I liked it for the diversity of cards in the deck, and it's something that you can fetch if you have to sacrifice like an Oil Deep Gear Hulk to get something going, something along those lines, because it's the only 5-drop in the deck. But because it's a 5-drop, it could also easily be replaced for something cheaper that may be better. So I'm kind of trying this one out for now, but it's not my favorite. The prowess is nice, and it can be relevant, so that's why it's in here. Now, the Oil Deep, I think, is actually really good. It has lifelink and ward, and it lets you look at your opponent's hand and basically discard one of the cards that your opponent has, which is really nice. Oh, excuse me. And it's a 4-drop. It still triggers Simulacrum Synthesizer, everything there like you'd need it to do. Could possibly replace it just for another airship if you really preferred. So I guess if I was going to make any changes to this deck from the build that I have here, maybe get rid of the Oil Deep for another fleet, and possibly get rid of the Riptide Gear Hulk for a second Enigma Jewel. Those are things that I would say are very viable changes that you could do very easily. And then land base, I think, is pretty good here. As I said, we do have a lot of black options with Gloomlake Verge, Godless Shrine, Watery Grave, Multiversal Passage, and Starting Town. So you do have plenty of black, blue, and white options here. So nothing too bad, nothing feels bad. I didn't go with any Meticulous Archives because it's a tap land that has to enter tapped, whereas the rest of these can kind of enter untapped as long as you have the appropriate means to do so. Your Godless Shrine and Watery Graves can pay 2 to enter untapped, as well as the Multiversal Passage. Starting Town will enter tapped if it's past your 3rd turn. However, it is a really good way to mana fix because it can be any color of your choosing. Now to the sideboard here, these are all cards that I thought were really good options for this deck that I considered but I didn't go with. There are even more as well. Obviously I left out things here, but some of the ones that I considered going with but just kind of opted against. 3 Steps Ahead's really good. I would consider this as a 2 of, maybe even a 3 of in this deck as a really good option. Grim Bauble, putting 2 or 3 of these in here is really good because it's early removal. It allows you to pair with Repurposing Bay to sacrifice for your 2-drops rather than just having 3-drops as your primary targets or things like that. And it has its own inherent sacrifice ability similar to the Cryogen Relic, so you could do that for 3 mana, but I thought 3 mana was too expensive for this ability because we have so many other better options, so that's why I opted against this in the deck. We do have Candy Trail as an option as well. This is a 2-mana sacrifice with its own inherent sacrifice. That allows you to gain 3 life and draw a card, so it's not the worst in the world. It's actually a really good option if you want something in here to where you can activate it to sacrifice more. This would be something I would consider even as a possible replacement for Clayfired Bricks, But Clay-Fired Bricks does also give you the added benefit of being able to use it with Repurposing Bay to get Simulacrum Synthesizer, so that's kind of where I went with that. Cargo Ship's really nice if you're feeling like you need more mana. In the same vein, you could also go with... I can't remember what it's called. It's the 2-drop white artifact that you can tap for white mana. So either of these could be good. I think the Cargo Ship was the option I went for here just because it is another vehicle that kind of pairs well with the Phoenix Fleet airship. You get another airship. But it doesn't count towards the Phoenix Fleet airship's, ability of having 8, so it doesn't recognize it as one of them. But the fact that you can tap this for artifact spells or abilities makes it to where I thought it was pretty useful as an inclusion. Emissary Escort's still really good in this as well, because you will end up having a lot of opportunity for it to be a 3, 4, or even possibly 5 power creature with the Riptide Gearhulk. So that's something to consider too. I didn't like it because it just wasn't as valuable as a lot of the other options that we have here, and it gets hit by the Pinnacle Star Cage, but that's something to consider. Tithing Blade, really strong inclusion in black if that's something you want to go for. I know enchantment decks are really popular right now, where you might be playing up against mono white or Azorius enchantments, and having the ability to force your opponent to sacrifice so that you don't have to target the creature is pretty huge. So this is a really good one that I would definitely include in sideboard, even if you're not playing at main board. Maybe if you're playing this deck of best of 3, this is a really good consideration. Like I said with Beseech the Mirror, you could use it getting that bargain ability to trigger sacrifice and play the Phoenix Fleet airship on turn 4 or whenever you potentially have the 3 black mana available. I personally tried this instead of the United Battlefront when I was giving it consideration, but United Battlefront is just honestly easier to cast, being a 1 white required, and it gives you a little bit more value because you get 2 cards instead of 1. So I did decide that the United Battlefront was better in my testing, but Beseech the Mirror really is a good consideration if you want to go with that. Mephetic Drought is a 2-drop that gives you a card draw whenever this goes to the graveyard. So it is kind of like a pseudo Cryogen Relic. You could get it as a really good another option to get more card draw. It does hurt you, as well as not having its own inherent sacrifice ability. So that's why I considered it worse than Cryogen Relic, but it isn't something you could include in here as something to pair with Cryogen Relic that is good to sacrifice, because you do get upside when it hits the graveyard. We've got Mendicant Core Guidelight. This is actually a really good card, and you could build this deck in a very different way, going with things like the Mendicant, Assimilation Aegis, and Haunt the Network, to where those all pair really well together. But I didn't go that route personally for this. I wanted to lean more into the black. But you have this creature's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. We're going to have an absolutely ridiculous amount of artifacts, even without Simulacrum Synthesizer and Phoenix Fleet Airship triggering. And it has a max speed ability to where whenever you cast an artifact spell, you can pay an additional, or you can pay 1. If you do, you copy it, which is really fantastic, because it could immediately give you a copy of your airship, or even give you a copy of your Simulacrum Synthesizer. So if you have these, it's very interesting to try and play around it, and as a 2-drop, you can still sacrifice it to Steam Core, or with Repurposing Bay to get Simulacrum Synthesizer or Phoenix Fleet. So really good consideration. Braided Net is also obviously a pretty common staple deck in the Azorius Artifacts deck. You could absolutely include it in this, and having it can win you games. Like, this card can make a huge difference when it's in your deck, just to tap down your opponent's threats. I've used this in my normal Azorius or Jeskai artifact builds to tap down, for example, any kind of excuse me again, to tap down in a mono-green landfall deck. You can tap down their Mossborn Hydra, making it unusable, to where even though they have it absolutely gigantic, they can't attack in. It makes them use a lot of their protection spells early, to give you the availability to kind of win later with your bigger threats. So Braided Net is not anything to shy away from. This is a really good card that I just didn't think fit well enough in this deck for me to include it. We've got the Assimilation Aegis, just like Perilous Snare, a very really good removal that you can do fairly early. It's in that 3-drop range, so it's very good in this deck. I don't like using the ability to equip it. Most of the time, your normal artifact tokens are going to be better than whatever you exile under this for your deck. So even if you exile a really fantastic card and want to turn one of your tokens into it, it no longer gets the power and toughness from the rest of your tokens or artifacts that you have. So it usually, at least in the deck, feels worse to do the equip. And so in that case, I prefer just having Perilous Snare and Pinnacle Starcage. But it is still absolutely worth considering as a really good removal. We've got Memory Guardian. This is really fantastic because it can be a 1-drop that triggers Simulacrum Synthesizer because it has affinity for artifacts, and it has flying, which can be really good evasion for you to make sure that you can get in, because normally with your regular Simulacrum Construct tokens, they don't have flying and can sometimes be chump blocked if your opponent has a lot of tokens. However, we do have the Phoenix Fleet Airship in this deck, so flying is something that we have in abundance. So don't really necessarily need that flyer as much as you would normally in the regular Azorius build. We've got Hunt the Network. This is a 5-drop, which is one of the things that I see as one of the big negatives for it. You do have this as a really interesting option, though, to choose target opponent, create 2 1/1 colorless Thopter creature tokens with flying, and then the chosen player loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of artifacts you control. You can use this as a non-combat win con. And so that's really good in this deck, especially against some sort of like a control matchup where you're having a hard time getting out what you really need, but maybe they're letting you get out a lot of your 2-drops. So that's something worth considering. I would probably put this card in sideboard even if I wasn't using it main board, just because of the ability to get that kill without having to have all of your airships able to attack, or without necessarily having your Simulacrum Synthesizer making you enough tokens to get the combat damage necessary to kill your opponent. So really good card that I would consider in this deck, at least in sideboard if not in main board. And then we've got Demonic Junker. This is pretty similar in the guise of like a Haunt the Network or Memory Guardian. It does have affinity for artifacts, so you can get this vehicle out very, very cheap if you have a lot of artifacts already. And when this enters, for each player, destroy up to 1 target creature that player controls. So you can blow up something that your opponent controls, or blow up something that you control. And if one of the creatures that you control is destroyed this way, you can put 2 1/1 counters on this vehicle. And it has a crew cost for 2, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to be able to get it out there. The real benefit of this is that it has affinity for artifacts, so it's an artifact that you can play that will have the ability to trigger Simulacrum Synthesizer that is very cheap and can give you upside as well. So I don't think it's as good as something like the Phoenix Fleet Airship, because it's going to do so much for you anytime it's on the battlefield, as long as you have the ability to keep creating more of them. But it is a really potentially very good inclusion. Spectral Restitching, also another one that I thought was worth mentioning for this. Obviously, you can use this as a way to blink in and out any of your non-token Phoenix Fleet Airships, Simulacrum Synthesizers, Repurposing Bays, Perilous Snares, any of these things to cause a significant amount of recasts for the synthesizer to create more tokens. You can also use this as a way to blink out your opponent's creatures and get them out of the way for an attack, or any of their attacks that you might want to avoid blocking. So really good inclusion as well. I think the problem that I have with Spectral Restitching is it's too slow. To get it to do your 3 manas or 4 manas, you're going to be paying at least 4 mana for it. And a lot of times you're going to feel like you just want to do something else with that mana, like play an airship, play a United Battlefront, maybe get Noctis out on the field because it has lifelink. Whatever the reason, it just didn't feel like it was coming online early enough to really be effective, so it felt dead in the hand when I would have rather had something like a United Battlefront. So that's why I didn't include it. But another really fantastic choice. I really, like, there's so many different ways that you can build this Esper build that are viable and really useful, that I think it's really a high contender for artifacts right now. I think this can be just as good as running the Jeskai build personally. You don't necessarily have to agree with that, but I have played a few games with this in this version, as well as in the past I've played Esper with Noctis and stuff, trying to get a lot of replayability, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get into games. I know I've been rambling on for a while now with these other potential inclusions in the deck, but I really thought those were worth going over because there's so many different ways that you could build this that are effective that I really wanted to bring that up. But I'll go ahead and get into games. I'm going to be playing best of one like I normally do, going for 3 wins. Hopefully you guys enjoy this because this is a really fun deck, and I'm loving the inclusion of black in this. I really feel like the Phoenix Fleet Airship just brings this deck to another level. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into some games. Alright, opponent gets to go first. Our land's okay here, but we don't have any black yet. I still think that's probably fine, though. Looks like we're up against some form of a mirror match, because they also are playing artifacts. Prophetic Prism. That's kind of interesting to see in an artifact deck. Alright, Bloom Lake will only be blue mana for now, but I think that's still fine. We'll go ahead and get the synthesizer down. I don't think we want Noctis here. I could be wrong on that, but I think this is probably the right play. Because we're going to want to get a repurposing bay down next, and we can do that with the Enigma Jewel. That's fine. We can even get our own Perilous Snare to get rid of it. Go here, get Repurposing Bay and Enigma Jewel going. Unfortunately, Enigma Jewel does enter tap, so we're not able to sacrifice anything right away, but we will be able to next turn. Another Prophetic Prism on top for them, that's crazy. They do have the mana here to sacrifice something, but there's nothing good for them to sacrifice except for more of their prisms. Okay, getting another Perilous Snare to get rid of our Repurposing Bay, but that's honestly fine. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go Repurposing Bay. Sacrifice this. I'm just going to go for my own Perilous Snare and get back our synthesizer. I don't really want these. Let's go for the Watery Grave so that we can cast the fleet. Repurposing Bay. What he should go for here would probably be like another Perilous Snare. Really, went for his own synthesizer. So he doesn't want to do the back and forth snares. Okay. Okay, because he had another one, that's why. Gotcha. Okay. I am going to go ahead and go with this just because we need it on board. And then I think I need to go like this. Pay 2. We're going to use this. Getting rid of this. Go for a synthesizer. Don't have a lot of them left, unfortunately. Star Cage is pretty decent. I don't know how much we want that, but it's very usable. Then we'll go ahead with a Phoenix Fleet airship, get it down. It will trigger the Simulacrum Synthesizer, and then since we sacrifice something at the end of the turn, it will also get a secondary one. Spring Loaded doesn't do anything except give him something to sacrifice. Not sure what he'll go with here. Another repurposing bay. I don't think that's necessarily anything too crazy. Okay, he's sacrificing the other repurposing bay, I guess, to go for the haste option? Yeah, okay. Alright, what do we want to do here? Probably go here. Let's go ahead and get another airship going. Go ahead and pass. We are up to 6 airships right now. Now, unfortunately, his are going to have haste, but he's only going to be able to generate like 1. Yeah, now he's gotten another. So that's 2, and he gets to take something else of mine, which could just be a creature. I still have very good blockers here. Yeah, and I could win by flying over with the airships on my turn, which was going to be what I was going to do. So, yeah, we did just beat out the Jeskai mirror match with our Esper build. And I'm pretty happy about it, too, because he even took all of my Simulacrum synthesizers, basically. He's got one of my repurposing bays, the synthesizer, a perilous snare, and another synthesizer. So he hit me really, really hard against those. But having all these Phoenix Fleet airships and having all of them create more to create more tokens really put me ahead. And I could just do the same thing again with another Pinnacle Star Cage, eating everything and then sacrificing it again to get another airship. So really good game 1. I love that we got to showcase the ability for this to overpower the alternative. So yeah, let's see if we can get a good game 2. Alright, unfortunately our opponent does get to go first, but the mana looks pretty usable, so I'll keep. We are going to need another black for the fleet. That should be fine. Have this enter tapped here, and then probably play Cryogen Relic. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be up against a deck that's going to be heavily hitting our hand, because no one just uses Deep Cavern Bad anymore. Okay, they took the synthesizer. Unfortunately, I'm going to just have to hold off, or hold up the spring-loaded saw blades, I think, because of that. Essence Channeler's fine, because if he attacks with his Deep Cavern Bat, he's going to regret it. I would really love to see a Pinnacle Star Cage here, and we may end up trying to get the repurposing Bay down just to make that happen. I still gotta get the saw blades down so that we can utilize it. Next turn, we should be able to take just everything. Can get the fleet down now too, which is nice. We are going to need one more land to be able to double spell with the repurposing Bay triggers. Bats are probably in a pretty good place right now. I haven't seen anyone play Orzhov Bats in a while. Did get the extra land, which is nice. Can go ahead and go here. Not bad. We'll go ahead and do this. Have to go with the Star Cage, unfortunately. And our spring-loaded saw blades can't hit Zoraline, so that sucks. Go ahead with a flood farm here. If I do this, yeah, I can't sack anything. So I think what I need to do is going to be another Cryogen Relic into a Perilous Snare. Okay, and they gave up, but that's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to do Cryogen Relic into Perilous Snare. We have an absolutely loaded hand now, so we were going to be able to start getting the synthesizers down and use the spring-loaded saw blades to go get whatever we want, or even potentially get Phoenix Fleet down with it. We're on 4, so we will be on 6 next. We'd be able to double these if we wanted to on the next turn, which would be really good, and then after that go wild with the airship. So, yeah, pretty okay match. A little slow. Looked like we were on the back foot there, but honestly, Pinnacle Starcage gets rid of most opponents that are going to start early really strong and then putter out. That happens a lot with not just this Orzhov Bats deck, but also in general with like mono white life gain and stuff like that. If you, or even I had a match that I unfortunately wasn't recording where I had someone who was playing Badger Moles. They ended up reanimating both of their lands with 2 Badger Moles, and then I did Pinnacle Starcage. It not only took all the moles, but it also took all their lands, so they were basically reset to 0 just because they had been using Earthbending. So this card is absolutely insane against Earthbending and should not be overlooked. Anyway, let's see if we can get a good game 3. Alright, we do get to go first. Land is looking pretty acceptable, so I'll keep. Authority of the Accounts is from the opponent is a pretty good play. Let's go ahead and get this down. I'll have to debate whether I want to use the saw blades or not if they don't attack with anything. I kind of want to. I don't think they're going to be playing any creatures. Go blue here, pay 2. I am going to need another black, so maybe that was a bad choice. Starting town? I'm okay with starting town. Because we are going to need more land. Cryogen Relic, so they're also playing artifacts. Interesting. Do I want to just go for a 2-drop here? Probably. Let's go with Perilous Snare so that I can get rid of one of these authorities. That way they get a little less life out of it, at least. Perilous Snare of their own, pretty unfortunate. But it is what it is. We did get land, which is fine. Let's go here. Repurposing Bay, and I think Cryogen Relic's probably going to be the best here. It was a hard debate between it or Clayfired. Another combo here's pretty nice, and we do at least have a creature, which they don't, so we can start attacking. Land's looking good, too. We are up to 5, so we can do a 3-drop plus a, Repurposing Bay trigger. Obviously, we're going Simulacrum here. I don't really need either of these at the moment, I don't think. Unfortunately, Noctis doesn't get used a ton. Let's get another Repurposing Bay down here just so we can get another creature. They have their own Simulacrum now, which is fine. Alright, pretty interesting. Let's go ahead and get rid of a Repurposing Bay to start getting some Phoenix Fleet airships going. And I will go ahead and get Noctis down, just because I think that'll be fun. Seven damage in, which is no small amount, and now we get extra fleets, which gets more creatures. Nice. Split up doesn't matter at all, and they just used most of their mana for the turn. They can't do a 3-drop now. Alright, let's go Clay-Fired Brick. Get a land. Sacrifice for Synthesizer. Alright, and another mirror match that we won. I think the first match was way better. But this, like I said, this contends, if not is just better than the Jeskai or Azorius version. Their deck was mostly annoying because of the Authority of the Councils, which is really something worth using. I don't want to understate that. This card is really good and could be included in this deck as well. I always ran it in my Azorius and Jeskai versions for that reason. But with these Phoenix Fleet airships, we were going to be absolutely going crazy. It didn't matter how much life they were going to be gaining. We were going to be getting a ton of construct tokens because of the extra triggers here, and a ton of otherwise just from playing. So, I mean, we were in a really, really good spot here. There's a really high likelihood I was going to go for a Pinnacle Starcage soon, which would get rid of our own creatures, but I'd try to make sure that I'd get to attack with them, and then take all of their 2-drops, which was going to make their own Repurposing Bay even worse. And we could even sacrifice one of our Synthesizers if we wanted to go for more fleet ships. So, really, really cool build here. I wasn't having any problem. We were going to get to Scry here, get rid of these 2 lands because we honestly just didn't need them. Yeah, really fun deck. I wanted to get this out early because it is such a good combination, these two. Whether you want to play Dimir, Esper, whatever, like these two are a solid combination together that I think just outpaces the alternative. So I wanted to get this out early. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for joining me.